Okay, so good morning, everyone. I'm Sarah Fender. I am a group program manager in the cloud and AI security team. And here today we'll be talking about how you can harness the power of the intelligent security graph to improve security operations and cyber defenses. So I assume that most of you are here today because you're tasked with this incredibly hard job of trying to protect your extended digital estate from this increasing barrage of cyber threats. The move to the cloud and mobility of your workforce has really pushed the border of those estates beyond the boundaries of the physical network. And that creates a lot of interesting new challenges. Your data and your users and your systems are literally everywhere. Meanwhile, the frequency of attacks and the sophistication of those attacks is ever growing. Regardless of the size of your organization or the industry that you operate in, we all are under attack. So a growing security marketplace is packed with solutions that are designed to help organizations to combat these threats. And customers are deploying literally dozens of different solutions across multiple categories as part of their defense in-depth strategy. This includes identity and access management solutions, data protection, endpoint protection, network protection, and many, many others. And while there is some consolidation, we do see some acquisitions and some consolidation in the market, there's also a ton of innovation from new vendors and emerging categories of solutions. So don't expect this landscape to become simpler in the next couple of years. If anything, it will just continue to become more diverse and more complex. So we think that this creates some interesting new challenges and also some interesting new opportunities. So for customers, integrating each of these solutions with existing security tools and operational processes and workflows can be quite complex and time-consuming. Each solution typically will have its own API or integration interface, a unique schema, which makes the process of building and maintaining these integrations quite challenging. And at best, we see that some customers have sort of cobbled together integration, maybe with their security information and event management system. But even there, we often see many gaps, particularly in terms of the long tail of security solutions that they have deployed within their organization. In terms of opportunities, we really believe that by connecting the customer security technologies, we can not only significantly streamline security operations, so simplifying integration with SIEM and ticketing and incident response and automation systems. But we believe that we can, perhaps more importantly, connect security insights across the customer security technologies to improve the effectiveness of each of those. Imagine if an endpoint protection solution could have insight into what was happening on the network level, or a cloud workload protection solution could have better insight into what's happening with those users that are signing into those applications. By sharing insights across security technologies, we really believe, again, that we can increase the overall effectiveness of those technologies, making them smarter and helping to improve the overall effectiveness for our customers. So this system of connected security technologies is really core to the way that we do security at Microsoft. It's this connected set of data that really powers security intelligence in Microsoft products and services. And it's informed by trillions of signals from Microsoft products and services, as well as partners. You consider for a moment that more than 400 billion emails are getting analyzed by Outlook.com and Office 365 email services every month. 1.2 billion devices are getting scanned by Windows Defender. Microsoft is powering enterprise security for more than 90% of the Enterprise 500. We see 450 billion authentications a month, 900 million threats detected on devices, and that's just from the Microsoft data set, those signals that we have here across our Microsoft platforms. But we've also expanded this data set to include insights from an ecosystem of security partners. And the good news is that you can now tap into this data through Microsoft Graph, effectively using the graph as the gateway for connecting your security and your organizational data. So for those of you who are not familiar with Microsoft Graph, it is the API surface for Microsoft 365. And includes data from Office 365, Windows, the Enterprise Mobility and Security Services, and many others. It contains a wealth of information about millions of users, information from Outlook and SharePoint and Intune and Azure Active Directory. And now it includes a wealth of security information as well from Microsoft Security Services as well as security services from partners. So let's talk a little bit specifically about the new Microsoft Graph Security API. So it is a unified access point to security insights and actions across Microsoft products and services and partners. That partner component is a very important part, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. So the first thing that it helps you to do is it provides a streamlined way to integrate and correlate security alerts from a range of security vendors. So all of those security technologies that we talked about a minute ago, or many of them anyway, are generating alerts that require the attention of someone within your organization to triage or respond or mitigate if it's an active threat. So all of those alerts are being emitted in different schemas. Again, integration is being executed across multiple APIs. So the Graph Security API significantly simplifies that by providing a single interface. A developer can write code one time to get alerts from any Microsoft Graph security provider. Because those alerts are returned in a common schema, it's much easier to correlate those alerts, not only with other alerts, but also with other data within the organization or with additional threat intelligence, either internally or from a vendor solution. And it also provides the ability to keep alert status in sync across those solutions. So not only can an integrated application get data alerts from the graph, but can also update alert status and assignments in the graph as well. It also is designed to help provide access to contextual information that can be quite useful in informing security operations. So it provides the ability to drill down into additional information about users or hosts or applications, and to access all of that other organizational data that lives within the graph, that data from Azure Active Directory or Intune or Office. So providing access to information about what devices a user has registered, maybe where within that organization a user sits, which can be important in terms of triaging or investigating threats. And then relatively new, we just announced this week, I believe, was the ability to get access to or improved visibility into security configuration data via Secure Score to enable more proactive risk management. And then the final pillar, key capability that the graph will enable is the ability to simplify orchestration and automation. So it provides the ability for developers to build investigation and remediation playbooks that call the Graph Security API to take action. And what's a bit unique about that is that action can be taken against a single system, but because we have this host of security technologies that sit behind the graph, it can also federate that request out. So just like it gets alerts from multiple security technologies, it can take action against multiple security technologies. So consider you have an alert, see some malicious activity related to a particular IP address. Maybe you want to block that IP address in your on-prem firewall, but you also may want to block that in your Azure firewall as well. So this will make it much simpler to take that action, block IP address across the security technologies within your environment that have the ability to take action on an IP address. So it's sometimes helpful to articulate what the security API is not. So I'll start with that. So it is not a log collector. It is no data is being collected by the graph. It's not a threat intel feed or a threat intel sharing platform. There is no dashboard or web portal. I am going to show you a web portal demo. It's a sample application that you can download and use, but it is not a standalone product. It doesn't have its own user experience. It is an API, an integration layer that you can use to build insights from the graph into your own applications. It's not a security information and event management system, and it's not intended to replace one. What it is a unified REST API, again, an integration layer, provides this uniform schema across a variety of different security entities. As we've talked about, it's part of the broader Microsoft graph. It provides access to not only Microsoft, but third-party services. That's an important distinction from other Microsoft graph entities. And it's included with your Microsoft services at no additional cost. So the idea is that the Microsoft graph provides easier access to data and insights from security technologies that you've already licensed and deployed. So we don't charge an additional fee on top of the licensing fee. Of course, the more integrated technologies that you license and deploy, the richer the data that you get back from the graph. So let's take a little closer look at how this thing works. So there are a set of security providers that sit behind the Graph Security API. That includes today virtually all of the Microsoft security technologies. And that's relatively new. When we launched beta a couple of months ago, we had a couple of security providers, so very excited to see almost full coverage across the Microsoft security technologies. The Office 365 and Azure ATP integrations are coming soon, and by soon I mean weeks, not months. So within a very short period of time, we'll have coverage across virtually all, again, of the Microsoft technologies. And then this week, we also announced alert providers from a range of third-party solutions as well. So vendors like Palo Alto Networks, their App Framework solution, Illumio, Lookout, Contrast Security, Symantec, and we'll continue to expand that set of data providers that sit behind the graph, again, first-party and third-party. So the way this works is that the Graph Security API, again, federates requests out to these various providers. It aggregates the results back and applies that common schema. And it exposes entities like alerts, which we've talked about, secure score, and other security entities over time, context, and actions. And it also provides that access, as we talked about, to those other graph services. Now, Microsoft Graph kind of sits behind or leverages a set of common libraries, has a common authentication and authorization framework, and so that's common across the Graph Security API as well as other graph services that are available. So integrated applications call into the Graph API via that common authentication and authorization layer. And this could include a variety of different kinds of applications. Some examples I've included here are security applications like Anomaly and Demisto. Anomaly, for example, is a threat intelligence platform. They consume alerts from the graph and correlate them with their own threat intelligence, and then build out some experiences on top of that that enable users to explore those threats based on their threat intelligence information. Demisto is a security orchestration and automation solution, and so the integration there pulls in alerts, so you can integrate those into your Demisto playbooks. And as soon as we light up actions, it'll also enable actions through Demisto. So today it pulls in alerts. It also gets additional user and host contextual information from the graph. Just a couple of examples of the kinds of security applications that can access or get data from the graph. We also have integration. I'll drill down a little bit more into how that works with SIM and log analytics platforms like Splunk and IBM and Sumo Logic. And then, of course, your custom apps, and we see lots and lots of different applications, not only from customers. So very large customers often have their own developers or their own custom tooling or workflows that they've built out in their security operations teams. So they can leverage the Graph API directly, building integration into their custom applications. We also see MSPs and CSPs building integration into their management dashboards. We see non-security applications, financial, healthcare, accessing this security information as part of their applications as well. So really an unlimited set of possibilities to access this data either into your applications, your custom applications, or to solutions from other security vendors that you may leverage within your organization. So let's drill down a little bit into alerts. So the graph enables you to connect and enrich alerts, again, from multiple sources. This can be quite helpful to understand the scope or the impact of an attack. That correlation can be really, really helpful. And because the alerts are aggregated and returned in that common schema, it's much easier to do. So your application can use filtered queries to get all alerts for a specific user or device or file or for a specific time frame while in the process of investigating a specific threat. Or it can subscribe to notifications for all new or update alerts that match that criteria. So you can either do kind of a more narrow targeted query, again, as part of an investigation process, or you can use the graph to get all alerts or all alerts matching particular criteria, maybe all high severity alerts, for example. And then we talked about the ability to also post back updates to those alerts as well. So status and assignments is one thing. Today we see that maybe those alerts are flowing into a ticketing system of some kind, and status of that alert is being managed there, but it never is updated in the originating application. So if you're in Defender ATP, for example, that alert may still be showing as active and open when in fact it's already been resolved. So it would be great if we could maintain some consistency across these systems, and the Graph Security API will help to do that. You can also tag alerts with additional context or threat intelligence. You can capture comments or feedback, and that information can be visible, again, across any of the integrated solutions that have knowledge of that alert. So you've got visibility then with those notes and that feedback across all of these various systems. So no matter where you're looking, what tool you're working in, you can have this kind of common view of the security alert and all the related data and its actual accurate status. Talk a little bit more about Secure Score. How many of you are familiar with Secure Score? Probably quite a few of you. Yes. So Secure Score is great. It's kind of like a credit score, let's say, for security. Makes it easy to understand what your current security posture is, and perhaps more importantly, to provide recommendations and suggestions on additional controls that you can implement to improve your security posture. So that information is now available through the Graph Security API, and it provides visibility not only into your Office 365 Secure Score, but Windows 10 and EMS services as well. And Azure Security Center is also adopting Secure Score, and so that data also available through the Graph Security API. And again, that is information across all of those services. You see kind of a common theme here. We're really looking to aggregate security insights from across these sources. Secure Score is another example where you're getting kind of a unified view of the security posture across Office and Windows and your infrastructure that's running in Azure. And that includes access to historical data, which is important so you can see trending. How are you doing? How is your security posture increasing or decreasing over time? So that 90 days of historical data is available through the API as well. And then there's context, so there's that access to all of that additional information that lives within the graph. So you could very, very easily learn more about a potentially compromised user from Azure Active Directory, what devices are registered to them in Intune, as well as a host of other information about the user's meetings, mail, docs, and much, much more that's part of Graph. So let's flip over and take a look at the demo. Okay, hopefully that's not too small for you to see. And I apologize, folks over there. I hate that they put this big monitor up here for short people. I feel like I'm the little cartoon character looking over the desk sometimes. So sorry about that. Okay, so what we're looking at here is a sample application. Again, the Graph Security API does not have a user interface. It is not a product. It's not a dashboard. But we do provide this as a sample, which you can download and use to build your own integrated application. And it just gives us an opportunity to showcase some of the things that you can do with the graph in your own applications. So all of the information that's being surfaced here is derived from the graph via queries. So you can see along the top we have some dashboardy views where we're seeing information about alerts by severity or users at risk based on the number and severity of alerts for those users. Same with hosts, the number of alerts and the severity for each of those hosts, and information about where those alerts are kind of coming from, which providers to the graph are generating the most alerts. So if we click down on any of these, we can see that behind the dashboard, is a simple REST query. So what's being returned then is this list of aggregated alerts from various providers. And again, that's all coming in a common schema. So if we click on one of those alerts, we can see the alert detail here. So let's start though and take a look. I'm going to do a filtered query and look for alerts for a particular time frame. Again, I could run a variety of different filters here. I could say I want to see only alerts of a certain severity or a particular kind of alert, alerts of a different status, or for a particular provider. But again, I'm going to do that by the time range. And what I get returned is that list, again, of aggregated results for this time window from across all of my services. So I can click on an alert to get the detail, again, in that common schema. And one of the great things about this experience, and something you can certainly replicate in your own applications, is the ability to really easily pivot. So I see this particular phishing alert is related to a user, Douglas. And so I may want to then pivot and ask the graph, what other alerts exist for this user, Douglas? And you'll see, again, the query is reflected here, and the list of related alerts is surfaced here. The other interesting thing is we talked about the ability to get additional information about that user. Let me find that alert again. Our user, Douglas. So here we can very, very easily get additional information from the graph. Again, this is being sourced by from Azure Active Directory about Douglas. We can see what his job role is, who his manager is, even the office location, unless in the event that you needed to actually lay hands on his machine for some reason. So the other thing we can do is manage the status of this alert. But before they do that, I'm actually going to go back here to my high severity alerts. So all of these are ad hoc queries, but we may want to, as I mentioned earlier, subscribe to a notification. So here I want to get notified anytime a new high severity alert is generated or updated within my organization. So I simply subscribe to that query. I can see my list of subscriptions here, and I'm going to open the notifications window. We'll just leave that running here. So back to our alert. Let me pick my date range again. I'm not finding my original alert, it doesn't matter. What I wanted to show you is the ability to update the alert status. So I've got a high severity alert here. I can change that from new to resolved. I can add information about whether that was a true or false positive, and I can add comments. And then I can update that alert. And because I have a notification for to be notified whenever an update or an alert is created or updated, you can see that I just got that notification about the change. The other thing we can take a look at just quickly here is that secure score, which I mentioned. And so here via the API, we're getting information about our total secure score. So how is my organization ranking versus the total possible score that's available. We also get detailed information about the controls that are being recommended to improve my security score. I can see how my score compares to other Microsoft tenants, or customers that have similar size seats or those that are in similar industries. So lots of information that you could use to integrate into your IT management dashboards or experiences, or again, to just more proactively understand the security posture and to improve that in your integrated applications. So again, lots of additional information available there. Okay. So I mentioned earlier SIEM integration. I wanted to talk a little bit about that. So certainly you can integrate with the SIEM solution using the Graph Security API. But we have an alternate method available as well that supports streaming of alerts to a SIEM. So this provides a unified pipeline per tenant to stream alerts in near real time from Microsoft Security Services. So today, the streaming method does not support partner alerts. That's something we're considering, but today that's available for your Microsoft alerts. So the way this works is that the Graph Security API collects those alerts, puts them into the Azure Monitor service in that common schema. Now you may want to add other alert data there as well. So Azure Monitor already includes information about audit and events that are happening in your Azure environment, and you can add additional data sources there as well. So you can get all of your alerts plus audit data into Azure Monitor, and then there are existing SIEM connectors for Splunk, QRadar, and Sumo Logic, and more are in the works that will sort of pick up that data and integrate it into your SIEM solution. So this just provides an alternate method for integrating alerts and also a path to integrate raw event data, which is not part of the Graph Security API, with your SIEM solution. So we have lots of customers taking advantage of this, even if maybe they don't have custom tooling within their organization. This will certainly simplify integration with SIEM technologies. Again, one pipeline, it's per tenant, which is a bit unique from configuring that via your Azure subscriptions. So today you have to do that on a subscription by subscription basis, where this is tenant-wide and across all of your Microsoft security technologies. So significantly simplifies that SIEM integration pipeline. So I want to talk a little bit about what's next on the roadmap. So I mentioned that we will continue to onboard additional Microsoft products and services, but also those from our ecosystem partners. So we have the 5 that we announced today, but lots and lots of additional providers are in the pipeline. We're investing significantly there. We think it's a critical part of the Graph Security API value prop is to extend that connectivity, not only across Microsoft services, but those partners that we know you rely on as well. Security is a big job, and we know you won't be doing it only with Microsoft technology. So super, super critical. Lots of focus on building out that ecosystem of providers to the graph. The other thing is the ability to unlock additional security context through security profiles. So we talked a little bit about getting access to other graph data from Azure Active Directory or Intune, but this would be security specific data from security providers. So think about, for example, the endpoint protection solution may have a particular insight into risk score for a device or a user. Maybe also there's some information that a CASB solution knows about that same user and their activities. So the idea is, again, to federate requests out for security information across these security technologies, aggregate, and return the results back. The other super important piece is to enable actions, as we talked about a bit earlier. And so there'll be some new entities around actions and configurations that will help to get that job done. Another new capability that we are looking at is the ability to enable threat intelligence via the graph, so enabling you to bring threat intelligence and perhaps over time even to access Microsoft Threat Intelligence. This is a new area that's a bit more exploratory, but we know that threat intelligence is an incredibly important part of the security story. There's lots of good insights that we have at Microsoft and lots of insights that you have in other technologies, threat intelligence platforms, for example, that you may want to leverage. And then building out lots of resources, developer resources, client SDKs, more sample code, and more languages that will help our developers really kickstart the integration process. So for those of you who want to learn more, there's a lot of technical resources here. It's maybe a little bit hard to see, but feel free to grab a photo and zoom in. So documentation, so there's great docs on the graph.microsoft.com website and some information specific to how to configure that SIEM integration. So there's a step-by-step guide for some of the larger SIEM technologies. There's a brand new white paper that we launched this week that provides a real kind of depth view of the graph and gets into some detail about the kinds of scenarios that customers and partners can leverage the graph for. There's code samples and SDKs. We recently launched a new GitHub repository, so you can contribute your own sample code as well. So really trying to build out a community of developers who are sharing insights and samples. The security data is available through the Microsoft Graph Explorer, if you're familiar with that. We have a tech community and also tags on Stack Overflow, so you can take advantage of either of those communities. Lots of active discussion going on there. And then finally, I wanted to talk a little bit about what we're doing beyond the technical aspects to enable this connected system. And that is in large part associated with the Microsoft Intelligent Security Association. It's a bit of a mouthful. But the idea here is to really strengthen protection through collaboration. So the Graph Security API is one of the main technologies, of course, that's powering these integrations. There are others as well. But the idea here is to really simplify integration for our security partners to make it easier for them to integrate with Microsoft technologies, to sign one agreement, to have one sort of resource for go-to-market, and for us to really go to market together as we bring these integrated solutions to our joint customers.